The Sky This Month, with your host, Dave McDonald.
Welcome to The Sky This Month. I'm your host, Dave McDonald. I'm astronomy and STEM teacher at Belmont High School in New Hampshire and the senior educator at the McAuliffe Shepherd Discovery Center in Concord, New Hampshire. I'd like to start this show by just talking a little bit about a couple of programs that are coming up at the McAuliffe Shepherd Discovery Center, and that's why I've chosen to wear my Discovery Center shirt for the McAuliffe Shepherd Discovery Center. Every first Friday night of every month there's a special program at the McAuliffe Shepherd Discovery Center in Concord, New Hampshire. Take exit 15E off of I-93. So on October 4th, which is the first Friday night in October, there's going to be a great special speaker, and he's going to be talking about an asteroid impact that happened in the Gulf of Mexico at the end of the Cretaceous period, when 75% of all species on Earth went extinct within a few years. And just a few years later, life had already started to return to the impact site, but global species diversity would take another 10 or so million years to recover. So understanding the patterns of how life rebounds from mass extinctions can help us predict future trends following the current period of extinction. So our guest speaker on October 4th will be Dr. Chris Lowry. Chris Lowry is a research associate at the University of Texas Institute for Geophysics, specializing in how marine life responds to its environmental and records those changes. As part of the Ocean Discovery Lecture Series, presenting the work of the International Ocean Discovery Program, Dr. Lowry will be visiting the McAuliffe Shepherd Discovery Center on Friday, October 4th, both during the day to work with school groups and the public, and that evening for our special Superstellar Friday event. His visit, supported by the U.S. Science Support Program, will focus on recent research into the sediment cores of the impact site and picture those data, the picture that the data paint of light's recovery after the extinction. So pretty neat program. Come see Dr. Lowry. He will be at the Discovery Center all day on Friday, October 4th, as well as for the Superstellar Friday feature Friday evening. And along with our special speaker, the New Hampshire Astronomical Society will be there with their telescopes, and so it's a great evening to come and look through a variety of telescopes and see some planets, stars, nebula, galaxies. It'll be a real treat. And then jumping ahead to the first Friday in November, which would be November 1st, yours truly, Dave McDonald, will be presenting about the Zodiac, unveiling the mysteries of the Zodiac. Maybe you've heard, this is a 13th constellation of the Zodiac. It's Ophiuchus. Are you an Ophiucan? Are you really the zodiacal sign that you think you are? Your birth sign, do you think that's really correct? Well, I'll tell you that only 4% of people alive have the sign that they think they are. About 86% are off by a constellation, and 10% are off by 2 constellations. So you want to come November 1st and learn about the zodiac, its history, and find out what zodiacal sign or zodiacal sign you really are. You might be an Ophiucan and not even know it. So that's Superstellar Friday, Friday night, November 1st, at the McAuliffe Shepherd Discovery Center in Concord. I hope to see you there. So as we continue talking about what's going on in the sky this month, on October 5th, there's a special night called International Observe the Moon Night. And International Observe the Moon Night is when people all around the world look at the moon. And there's going to be a special program at Belmont High School, that's Belmont, New Hampshire, 03220 is the zip, 03220 if you want to get it in your GPS. Program starts at 7 o'clock, and there are going to be all kinds of things going on October 5th at Belmont High School. We'll have t-shirts available, there'll be food, there'll be moon rocks, real rocks from the moon for you to hold and observe. We'll have telescopes. It's going to be a great evening from 7 till about 10 o'clock on October 5th. So be sure you come out to Belmont High School on October 5th. It's going to be a great evening that you're going to enjoy. Other things that are going on in the sky throughout the month. We have Jupiter. You're getting your last good time glimpses of Jupiter now, because Jupiter is starting to set towards the southwest earlier and earlier each night. And as a matter of fact, as we get towards the end of October, it's going to be setting about 8:30. So mid-October, we're setting around 9 o'clock. So catch your glimpses of Jupiter, and again, through a telescope will be great because you'll be able to see the Galilean moons, Io, Europa, Callisto, and Ganymede, through the telescope as well. Very easy to see. And then following Jupiter, about 90 minutes later on the timetable, is Saturn. So Saturn is going to be setting about 90 minutes after Jupiter sets, but Saturn is a little bit to the west of south, around 7 o'clock or so at night. And so very easy to see. It's to the upper left of Jupiter, as you find, and you cannot miss Jupiter. Jupiter is the brightest object in the evening sky as you look south, and then Saturn is to the upper left of Jupiter. And with a telescope, you get to see the bonus. You get to see the rings of Saturn, and that's really going to be awesome. Now, another thing that's happening in the month of October is Mercury and Venus are playing a little peekaboo. They're really, really close to the horizon, and I'm going to show you where to find them towards the end of the show. When we do our night sky part, I'll show you how low in the sky Mercury and Venus are. But on October 19th is what we call Mercury's greatest eastern elongation, which means it's as far east of the sun as it's going to get, which means it's as high as it's going to get above the horizon. So even though Mercury is about 25 degrees away from the sun, because the ecliptic, and the ecliptic is the pathway of the sun and the planets, so even though Mercury is 25 degrees, which is pretty much 2 fist lengths from the sun, it's a very shallow angle, so the distance above the horizon is very, very small. So this month, Mercury is able to be found, but you really are going to have to make it a real quest. And Venus will be shining very brightly at a negative 3.7 magnitude, Mercury a negative 0.1. Plenty bright, but again, they're going to be in the brightness of the sky about a half an hour after the sun sets. But definitely worth going out to take a peek. Excuse me. The planet Uranus, which is behind me, is the feature of this October because Uranus is going to be closer to us, more visible, if you will, brighter than it's been in 57 years. It's been 57 years since we've had such a great view of the planet Uranus. And that's its proper pronunciation. All planets are properly pronounced with the accent on the first syllable, right? It's Saturn, not Saturn. It's Jupiter, not Jupiter. And it's Uranus, Neptune, etc. So Uranus is going to be at a position we call opposition on October 28th. Now Uranus takes 84 years to orbit the sun. So it's in no rush. It doesn't move that fast. So even though October 28th is the ideal night to try to find Uranus, weeks ahead, weeks after, there's no significant difference happening. And I'm going to show you again at the end of the program when we talk about the night sky, exactly where you can find Uranus. So if you remember magnitudes, magnitudes are numbers that we assign to objects in the sky that designate their brightness. And apparent magnitudes talk about how bright they appear. The smaller the number, or the more negative the number, the brighter the object. The higher the number, the dimmer the object. And a guy named Hipparchus, 1,000 plus some hundreds of years ago, BC, came up with this scale such that each magnitude from 1 to 6 would be 100 times brighter or 100 times dimmer. So now with our abilities, with our technology to be able to actually measure the brightness, we've now extended the scale to 0 for something that's really bright, like the star Vega, like the star Capella, and then even into the negative numbers, like negative 1.42 is the bright star Sirius, which is in the winter sky, and Jupiter, as I mentioned, is a negative 2 brightness, and Mercury a negative 0.1 brightness. So Uranus is right at the edge of visibility to most human eyesight. The edge of human visibility is typically pointed to be a magnitude 6. Uranus shines at a magnitude 5.7. So really, really close to that threshold. But very easy to pick out with binoculars. And if you have a small telescope, like will be at the Discovery Center on Friday night, October 4th, and Friday night, November 1st, you get to look through a telescope and you'll be able to see a little round disk, not just the pinpoint of light like most stars show up, but a discernible disk with a bluish color to it. And that's because of the methane that makes up the atmosphere of Uranus. So I'm going to show you a little later how to find the planet Uranus. You might be able to detect it without any help, but binoculars will definitely show it to you, and a telescope will reveal it in terms of a small disk. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about Uranus in just a moment. Another feature of the October skies is October 21st is the Orionid meteor shower. Now maybe you caught some of the Perseid meteor shower, which is very famous in the summer around August 13th. Well, the Orionids is another great shower, not as popular. Maybe it's because it's not as warm at night. But the neat thing about watching the Orionid meteor shower is when you see these meteors streak across the sky, you're seeing dust particles that have been left from Comet Halley. Halley's Comet left the debris and the dust that creates the Orionid meteor shower. And that is going to be a late night, October 20th, early morning, October 21st. But once again, a couple days either side should be fine. There's some moonlight that might take away some of the meteors. Typically, you might see 20 meteors an hour for the Orionid meteor shower, and perhaps because of the ambient moonlight that will be out, you might be down to maybe 10 meteors an hour, but don't be surprised if you don't see a fireball or two, or you see several meteors happening one after another. So watch out for the Orionid meteor shower. Go to a dark site, and October 20th, late night, October 21st, early morning will be the best time to see that. So let's talk a little bit more about the planet Uranus. So again, it's behind me. You can kind of see there's a ring system there, which was discovered in 1977, and more of the rings were discovered when the Hubble Space Telescope in 1993, 1994, excuse me, discovered more details and more rings. Actually, 13 rings have been discovered around Uranus. Who knew? Jupiter also has rings. Another story for another time. So let's take another look at an image of Uranus. And this new image that you see of Uranus shows the ring. And if you look carefully, you can kind of see some systems of rings there. And this is courtesy of the Voyager 2 spacecraft that went by Uranus. And some fun facts about Uranus. It was discovered in 1781 by Sir William Herschel. And we knew the planets Mercury, Venus, Earth, of course, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, but Uranus's discovery doubled the size of our solar system. We went from about 9.5 astronomical units to 19 astronomical units by Sir William Herschel discovering Uranus in 1781, which was really, really kind of neat. Uranus rotates faster than Earth, about 17 hours and 14 minutes for Uranus to rotate. And it makes one trip, as I already mentioned, around the sun every 84 years to go around the sun. Now, a very interesting thing about Uranus, it rains diamonds on both Neptune and Uranus. And what do you need to create a diamond? You need some carbon, which is there from the methane. Methane's formula CH4, so you have 4 hydrogens attached to a carbon. But due to the tremendous pressures and temperatures that happen, the carbon separates and we get to really crush and heat up the carbon to the point it turns to diamonds. So you need an incredible pressure, about 1.5 million times the pressure of Earth. And you need a temperature between 8 and 9,000 degrees Fahrenheit. So where do you get such pressure and where do you get such high temperatures to act on this carbon molecules to turn into diamonds? Deep in the atmosphere of Uranus. Deep into the atmosphere of Uranus. Uranus has a depth of about 16, a radius from surface to the center of about 16,000 miles. And when you get down to about 8,000, about half of the way towards the center, is where you're having these tremendous temperatures and tremendous pressures that create these diamonds, which scientists believe continue to fall, if you will, towards the core, towards the center of Uranus. Now, don't get too excited because these diamonds are not terribly large. They're on the size of a nanometer, which is about a billionth of a meter, 10 to the negative 9th meters. So they're tiny diamonds, but nevertheless, Uranus and Neptune are creating diamonds. Now, I mentioned Neptune. Neptune, on average, has a colder temperature, but Uranus has the coldest temperature that we know of in the solar system, getting down to a negative 224 degrees Celsius is mighty chilly for Uranus. And only one spacecraft, I'd like to bring up the spacecraft of the Voyager now, and one spacecraft, Voyager 2, is what flew by Uranus in 1986, and we got our most detailed images of Uranus, and then it flew on to Neptune. And then I want to show you a size comparison of Uranus and Earth side by side. So again, you can see the bluish color in Uranus because of the methane that's present in the atmosphere of Uranus. And that's why through a telescope we get that bluish color when we look at it through a telescope as well. But you can see Earth is about a quarter of the diameter of Uranus. Uranus is large, and it is the third largest planetary body, Jupiter being the largest, then Saturn, and then Uranus has the largest planetary body to it, and it's known as one of the gas giants, or one of the Jovian planets, and then Neptune is not too far behind. So, kind of some neat facts about Uranus. And we're highlighting it because it's the best time to see Uranus in 57 years. And a little bit at the end of the show, I'm going to show you where to find Uranus in the night sky. And so I hope that that's been of interest to you. And I do want to mention on the night of October 6th, if you go out October 6th and you find the moon, on October 6th, the moon is just a little bit, about 1/10 of a degree south of the planet Pluto. So Pluto, very difficult to see. You need like a 10-inch telescope to see it on a dark night. It's just to the left of Saturn, but the moon is going to be just below Pluto. So if you look at the moon on October 6th, just above the moon is where Pluto is. So you can say that's where Pluto is. That's the direction of the planet Pluto. But again, if you come out on October 4th or November 1st to the Discovery Center in the evening, the first Friday night of the month, there may be some astronomers that may be able to train their telescopes. So maybe you can actually have a look at Pluto through a telescope. So that's kind of neat, kind of exciting. So that's kind of what's happening up in the sky. And what I want to do now is take you to our map of the sky, show you the stars, show you some of the things I've talked about, where to find Mercury and Venus, Jupiter, Saturn, and the Orionid meteor shower. Okay, so let's take a look at the night sky. Well, earlier I mentioned to you that Mercury and Venus were going to be tough. So this is the best night for Mercury, October 19th. And you can see here we're about a half an hour after sunset. And you can see I've got some trees that I planted for the background here. But you can see Mercury is like just hovering at the tops of the trees. Half an hour after sunset, this is like 6:15 on October 19th. Venus right nearby, shining very brightly, but binoculars will help you through this because, again, you can see, one, the sky is light, and secondly, you can see that very close to the horizon. The sun has set over here, just a little bit south of west, because remember the sun set exactly west on September 23rd, which was the autumnal equinox. And so now the sun is starting to set further and further south each night. So we have Venus and Mercury a fair distance in terms of degrees away from the sun, but because of the ecliptic, which is the path of the planets and the sun, because you can see Jupiter up here at 6:15. So if you can kind of make an imaginary line coming down from Jupiter down to Mercury, Venus, and the sun, you can see that the angle here that the ecliptic makes with the horizon is very shallow. And that's why even though Mercury is 25 degrees away from the sun, it's only a couple of degrees above the horizon. So a couple degrees right there. Worth checking out though. It's a quest. It'll be fun. All right. So this is 6:15 October 19th. So now we're going to jump ahead only 45 minutes later and look how dark the sky is at 7 o'clock on October 19th. And again, the sky is roughly the same here a week or so before or after. So you can see now Jupiter is getting ready to set in the southwest over here. Saturn is, as I mentioned before, the upper left of Jupiter, 7 o'clock at night. And it's really dark out to be able to see these. But another neat thing you can see that Saturn is in the constellation of Sagittarius. Can you see the teapot? I've mentioned this one before, but there's the lid, the knob on the lid, and then you see this triangle here. That's like the lid of the teapot, the body, and then over here you have the handle of the teapot, and then down here is the teapot spout. That's an asterism, and an asterism is a familiar shape made up of stars that may or may not be from the same constellation. Sagittarius is the Centaur Archer, and we have this asterism to be able to find the teapot. And Saturn is hanging out there. And just to the left of Saturn is Pluto. And again, if you check out October 6th, which I don't have a slide for, but October 6th, it'll be just above the moon. And any night you can just look a little bit to the left of Saturn and say, that's where planet Pluto is, way out there, about 3 billion miles. So Jupiter's getting ready to set, and Saturn will be following about 90 minutes later. All right. Part of the summer triangle, Altair, is shown here. The rest of it is up higher off of the screen. But the star Altair is the eye of Aquila, the eagle, and you can see there's a star on either side of Altair. That helps you to be able to find out where that is. The summer triangle is pretty much overhead. 7 o'clock, this happens to be October 19th, but the sky looks relatively the same a week or so on either side. Okay, so next I want to talk about the Orionid meteor shower, October 21st, early morning, like after midnight, or late night, October 20th, and once again, a couple of days on either side of those dates, it's still good to be looking, okay? But you can see that over here we have Orion, the hunter. Here's his famous belt, and this is midnight. Midnight. It's just rising in the east. And as Orion rises, then what we call the radiant of the meteor shower comes into view. And that's going to be right here, just sort of above the hunter's right arm raised over his head is where the radiant seems to be. But you don't have to look just towards Orion. Throughout the whole sky, you could see Orionid meteors. You know if it's an Orionid if, when you trace the meteor backwards, so let's just say you saw one go over that way. Well, if you trace that meteor backwards, does it end up to be somewhere above the star Betelgeuse? If so, it's an Orionid. If you see a meteor go this way, how do you like those sound effects? Not an Orion. It's a stray meteor, what we call a sporadic meteor, but not an Orionid. So again, you can look through the whole sky to see the meteors, and if they trace backwards to this point in the sky, just to the upper left as you look at Orion, the upper left of Betelgeuse, then it's an Orionid. And remember, the neat thing about it is you see these meteors streak across the sky, you're seeing the dust particles that are left behind by Halley's Comet. Kind of cool. Next thing that I'd like to show you is the planet Uranus, which is kind of our feature story, if you will. This month we've been talking about Uranus. So where do you find Uranus in the sky? Well, we're going to look at a time that's pretty easy to navigate, like 7 o'clock in the evening. And this is October, I've chosen October 21st, the same night as the meteor shower. But as I said, over time, Uranus doesn't go very far. So this is looking towards the east-southeast, and Uranus is right here. But as I said, it's very dim. It's at 5.7 on the magnitude scale. So how can we help to find where Uranus is? Well, you can locate some things that are easier to find. So up here, we have the Great Square of Pegasus. Can you see this square? And if we bring up the lines, it will help a little bit more to be able to see the Square of Pegasus. So again, the lines don't show up in the sky, but this hopefully will be helpful. So this Great Square of Pegasus, then coming off as we look at the sky towards the left, this is Andromeda. And just as a side point, the Andromeda Galaxy is this little fuzzy spot right here. More about that perhaps next month. But underneath Andromeda, which swoops away from the upper left star, which the name of that star is Alpheratz. I just think of a big rat, the Alpherat. Alpheratz is the name of that star. And underneath Andromeda, first we come to this triangle, which is called Triangulum of all things. So it is, in fact, the triangle. And then underneath the triangle is this, which I think kind of looks like a hockey stick in a way, but that is the constellation of Aries. The brightest star's name is Hamal, and this is the constellation of Aries, the Ram. And if you follow the arc towards the end of it, it kind of slopes down and points to where Uranus is. Another way is to look, it's just above this little circlet here. It's just above to the right of this circlet. And underneath the head of the ram here is where you find the planet Uranus. So binoculars will help you locate it. A small telescope will definitely show you the disk of Uranus with a little bluish color to it. And then just maybe with some practice in a really dark sky night, you might be able to see magnitude 5.7 Uranus out there. So I hope you have some luck finding Mercury during October, finding Uranus during October. It's a great time, it's a great sky to get out and enjoy the evening. Don't forget October 4th, Friday night at the McCall Shepherd Discovery Center, and October 5th at Belmont High School, New Hampshire, the International Observe the Moon Night. And then November 1st, Friday night at the Discovery Center, I'll be talking about unveiling the mysteries of the zodiac. Are you an Ophiuchus? Hope that you enjoyed the show. I'm Dave McDonald.